There we go. All right, we're live, everybody. Welcome back to another Chai with Coaches live stream. I'm here with my co-host and good friend, Nahid Overville. Nahid, say what's up.
Hello, nice to be here again with you today.
I can't believe it's been already 2 weeks. I don't know about you, but this week has felt really long for me. Like, I feel like on Monday, it felt like it was already Thursday. Or like it needed to be Thursday already by that point because it's just so busy.
Yeah, I've actually been slowing down a little bit. So I have to say this is not exactly how I'm ramping up with workshops, but other stuff slowing down. So sorry you're feeling a little compressed in your time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's also because I'm going on vacation tomorrow. So it's
that's always a nice feeling.
Yeah, it'll be a nice feeling when I'm on the plane. So, but we got an interesting one today. Cool. I think it's a cool topic. Want to tell folks what it is?
Yeah, I actually think all our topics are cool and interesting, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I wanted to ask our viewers, our listeners, do they have some area in their life where they feel like they're neglecting themselves and putting something or someone ahead of them, right? So it could be another person and their needs, their wants, their desires, but it also could be an organization, an association. Drew and I were talking about this, our dogs, right? That's actually where I got this idea from. So what do you think that you may be neglecting in your own life, but you spend all your time, energy, and attention on something or somebody else? I think we all have perhaps at least one area like that. What do you think?
Or multiple areas, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's, and I've taken steps over the last year to try to minimize that a little bit more. Previously, I would always put everything else first, right? I put the business before my time, before my energy. I put B&I before my business and my time. Not before my business, but before my time and my energy. I don't have a problem as much putting Hachi before me because I'm cool with that because he's Hachi. But other than that, I tend to put everyone else before myself, like all this other stuff before my time and energy. And then about a year or so ago, I started being very intentional about what I took on and what I kind of let go of. And I was actively letting go of stuff because I need to make more space in my schedule for myself. Because I didn't have that space. I had never taken the time to create that energy in myself, that time and space to just be. And I think that's another reason why I'm feeling kind of weird now is because like over the last few months, I've been on a particular contract that's been taking a lot of my time and energy in a good way for good people. But at the same time, I have to create my own time for myself. And that hasn't really been happening as much as I'd like because I'm splitting my time so much between this one contract and then the other contracts I have to keep up with, as well as other, my individual clients I have to work with, Hachi, myself, growing the business because I have a lot of things that I'm doing for the business right now that I'm starting out. And then, second and third businesses that I'm doing as well because, those exist as well. And, social life.
Yeah, your personal life.
Yeah. So, yes, that definitely resonates. It's definitely a thought that I've had over the years. And I've been, like I said, I've been more intentional over the last year about it. And over time, old habits die hard. So over time, it kind of rebuilds over time. So like now,
creeps up.
Yeah, a year later, my schedule is now like kind of getting a little unwieldy again. I'm like, okay, I got to pare it down again. So I've taken steps to make space in my schedule, starting when I get back from vacation, to be a little more spacious in my schedule.
Right. So basically, Hachi first, then Hugh. Is that how it works? And then everything else below?
Pretty much, yeah. Everything else is like a strong third.
A distant third and fourth.
Yes.
Got it. So I'll tell you how this idea came to me. My dog, Lucy, we talk a lot about our dogs, has been scratching a lot. And I've been trying to figure out, does she have fleas and ticks? No. Is it something else? No. Is there a skin allergy? No. And then finally we figured it out. She's got dry skin. That's it. So I'm on the computer. As soon as I figured this out, I'm on the computer looking up humidifiers and all the rest of that. And it occurred to me that we've only had Lucy for 10 months, right? But over the last 2 years, since I've been in this house, 2.5 years, I've been telling myself I need to get a monitor stand just to relieve the stress on my neck, right? We all have these stresses because we're working from home so much. And I was asking myself, why is it the minute I figured out what it is for Lucy, and I've been doing all this other research even prior to that, I was ready to jump on the computer and immediately rectify it. Whereas for the past 2 years, I've been doing neck exercises, going to the chiropractor. I haven't gotten this damn computer stand. Like, as simple as that. Like, why am I putting myself so far below and always thinking about, in this case, Lucy first? So I felt like we need to really stop and reevaluate these things, because unless we're aware of it, it's just going to keep continuing like a silent record in the background.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example, honestly. And I think, so, you know how I feel about dogs. I think with dogs is okay. Other things I disagree. That's where I think they draw the line, right? I think it's where it's like, as long as you're taking care of yourself in some way, like,
I want to be equal with my dog.
that's just asking too much now. You're asking way too much at this point.
Got it.
Dog's got to come first. Here's the thing. I think with kids and pets, right? It's a little different because they can't serve themselves, right? I think that's
you
why
can't serve them well enough unless your cup is also full.
I agree. I'm just saying, like, when it comes to those, I can see that being how that can get a little more confusing. I think I would distinguish those situations, like kids and pets, from friends, from colleagues, from businesses, from work, from networking organizations, from whatever things you're volunteering your time and energy for. I'll distinguish those things from those, because those things are run by adults, right? Adults who have full control of their faculties, have full control of their own reactions to things. Whether they choose to exercise that control or not is up to them, right? And I think the difference is that when you're sitting there saying, okay, I'm going to be there for my friend for like the 100th and 50th time, when they're talking about the exact same thing over and over again, and they've done nothing differently, they've changed nothing, but they just want to complain. That's very different from saying, okay, my dog needs a humidifier, something to fix their skin or whatever, because they can't do that on their own. Whereas a human can do that on their own. Now, I fully agree with what you're saying, though. You gotta fill your own cup. You have to. Otherwise, you're just gonna run out at all times of energy.
So let me finish my story.
Okay, good.
Turns out, forget the neck issue, I too have really dry skin. We got this fancy super duper AC unit, and that's what apparently AC units do. They suck the humidity out. So we had the humidifier, and I kid you not, Drew, Lucy and I share it. So we actually had the humidifier. I forgot about it. It's a small one, and we have these big rooms. So Lucy gets it at night, and it's next to her bed, and I get it during the day. It's in my office. So this is how, for now, we've rectified the situation. But I feel like at least I'm not just completely ignoring the fact that, hey, you know what? I too have some needs. And by the way, I immediately got on to whatever. I can't remember where I bought my monitor stand from, because I told myself I'm not going to procrastinate. And procrastination for me looks like getting on and reviewing the 100th review, and also getting onto this side and then that side, and then did I forget that side? I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy it. I looked at the second one. First one didn't work out. Second one, bought it and was done with it.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like you guys are on equal footing now, right? You share the humidifier. So that means
yeah.
I mean,
she pretty much runs the show.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I tell people all the time, my car is my dog's car. I just drive it. It's literally like a palace to him inside. The back seat is like it's throne. It's hilarious. Anyway, but no, to the point though, where it's first of all, you did take the step to actually buy your monitor stand, which is great, right? But I think the people don't tend to get to that point of realization until they take a step back and examine things, right? And even things at work, right? So like, you're in a situation where you're at work and you don't delegate, right? You don't ask people for help. You don't feel like, oh, I need to be able to delegate effectively, or if you're not in a position to delegate, to ask for help or ask your boss to clarify what they mean, or even ask other people to say, okay, here, what's your role in the situation? How do we work together and split this work up properly? I think that's a challenge that people don't necessarily look at as much, because, sorry, there's an association with like working hard, right? Or being busy, or sacrificing yourself, right? The selflessness is almost like glorified in some sense.
Martyrdom.
Right, the martyrdom, right? Being a martyr for everybody else. And it's like, okay, well, is it really serving you though? Is it really going to help you And if you don't have to be a martyr, then why would you do that? Just to feel good about it, just to feel better that like, oh, I'm making a difference, I'm being a martyr, I'm doing whatever it is I need to do. But ultimately, if you sacrifice your energy, sacrifice your time, you're not able to help anyone else further in the future, right? You can actually help them better if you help yourself first, rather than helping them and like using up all your energy. It's like the whole idea of, again, serving the plane analogy, right? Like put someone else's mask, put your mask on first before you put someone else's on. And I know that some people are resistant to that idea of like, I refuse. I have to take care of everybody else first. Well, you're going to get what you always got, right? You're going to keep getting that same results. You're going to still be burnt out. You're going to still be in a situation where you don't feel like you have the energy to do half the things you want to do. And you're going to be even more frustrated because you're devaluing yourself actively. But you're going to be more frustrated because you're now creating that frame where you don't matter as much as everybody else, or as much as that other stuff does. And that's you reinforcing that behavior with behavior, which is even more strong.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even talk today, which is even stronger, a stronger reinforcement of your belief that you don't matter as much. And that's not healthy. It's not a healthy way to live. And you will get shorter and shorter fuse over time until one day it's going to explode.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because something that we need to be mindful of on a regular basis is, how does this situation serve me? Right? You also say that all the time. So when somebody is constantly in a pattern of self-deprecation, one way or the other, they justify it. Oh, I will be up for a promotion. They're gonna see that I'm working hard and working late and all the rest of that. But typically what you're doing, which is what you just said, is you're putting out the energy of self-deprecation and devaluing. So you can actually be one of those people who probably gets a lot of work done, or at least puts in a lot of time. Whether that's necessarily a lot of work is debatable. And then when the time comes to be promoted, somebody else gets picked. And that creates so much anger, frustration, resentment. And we think that we're the victim in the story, not realizing that it's really our energy that is creating this pattern over and over and over again. And one of the things that I'm focusing a lot with my clients is, if you have unexpressed emotions, if they don't come out in a healthy way, guess what? They're going to turn inward, and that's what causes all these chronic issues and diseases that we have a very hard time with medical, processes to actually resolve, because a pill is not going to help you release those emotions.
No, not at all. And you hit the nail on the head with resentment, right? When you turn those feelings inward, that resentment builds and builds and builds. And my professor from Georgetown, Neil Stroll, really good guy, awesome, amazing coach, has this saying, which I love, which is, the path to resentment is paved by the request that was never made, right? And it's like, it's awesome because you think about it. It's like so simple, but people never think about it, right? Mm-hmm. And you keep devaluing yourself. You keep saying like, oh, I'm making a sacrifice because people will appreciate it, right? Mm-hmm. People will appreciate this. People will appreciate this. I'm making everybody happy. But at the end of the day, when, and not if, but when someone doesn't appreciate it, or does something that works against you thinking that they appreciate it, then you blow up like, oh my God, I'm the worst. I can't believe it. Blah, blah, blah. And you start blaming yourself and blaming the whole situation, because you have this frame of, now you are the victim, right? But you've done this to yourself. You're a victim of yourself, not of anything else. You can't blame anyone else but yourself. And the thing that victims have is that mindset of, I'm the victim. It's everyone against me. This always happens to me, or whatever frame you want to put on that. But if there's a pattern of things happening to you, who's doing it to you, right? And you can't really blame anyone else if it's the same thing keeps happening to you, because there's a pattern of behavior, and you have to look back and say, what did I do? What can I do differently in the future? How could I possibly avoid this situation? And what's the common denominator? If it's you, it's probably going to be you.
I was just going to think that, like, least common denominator. When you think about all the different people and all your various stories, who's the least common denominator? And I guess what? It's going to be you. And I've talked about these experiences that I've had. For example, when I resisted certain things, and how it all blew up in my face, because initially I thought it was them. They were the ones that were wrong. They're the ones who are being unreasonable. They're the ones who are whatever. I just stopped and asked myself, okay, who inside of me is feeling some resistance and it's turning itself into a victim story? And then not only am I not enjoying this experience, I've now made it a living hell for everybody else around me, right? And it takes awareness, which is true. And we're not always taught to be self aware, which is also true. But really, what I'm learning more and more of, it takes a willingness to want to be content, feeling happy, feeling that things are moving forward with you in your life. But you can't be in a victim story and at the same time feel content with life. And so if you want to be, if you're in a victim story and you want to transition from here to here, you got to start looking at, okay, what are the common denominators, me being one of them? How do I shift me so I can get to a place of contentment? And I think that's, if people are focused on saying, how do I just improve my mental and emotional well-being, they're going to get to that place. They're going to get that awareness. They're going to realize the clarity related to all of this. And it's not such a huge leap, right? At least, once you start, then the next step begins to show itself.
Yeah, I think the other thing that is that it becomes an identity, right? You wrap your identity up in this being this victim mentality thing, and it's this identity of, and it's a false identity, right? It's like it's this idea like, oh, it's serving me because I'm serving everybody else. I have to serve everybody else. It's like, okay, but you're not though, right? Like you're really not. Like you're not serving anyone when you're blowing up on people, getting upset, getting frustrated, and people don't want to deal with you anymore. Because that's what's going to happen. That's the ultimate goal of what's going to happen. What the path you're on leads to that ultimate result. But people think they think it's serving them, and I ask some people all the time, "How is that serving you?" I'm like, "Oh well, it's really not serving you. If you're self-aware, you'll see that.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, you think it's serving you. There's a perception that it's still serving you in some way. It's probably an incorrect perception, but how is it serving you? That question is meant to ask, how do you think it's serving you? And once you realize that fallacy is there, then it becomes that much easier to overcome it. If you're not self-aware, you'll be like, well, I'm serving. I get to help people. But do you really help people? Because if people are dealing with you, you're helping them on one level, but on the other side of it, you're pissing them off and frustrating them, and they don't want to deal with you. Are you really helping them? Are you able to help people if the people don't want to deal with you anymore? Probably not. So it's something that people need to like take that separate that identity from themselves of like being the victim, being the martyr, like they have to sacrifice themselves in order to be of value, because they wrap up their value in sacrifice, right? It's like, how much can I sacrifice myself? That's how valuable I am. I have to get rid of myself. I have to sacrifice everything possible in order to have value. But in reality, you have value regardless of whether you sacrifice yourself or not. Right. And people don't realize that.
So as you were saying this, I was reminded of a situation with my brother. So when he turned, I can't remember, maybe it was 40, I really wanted to throw him an epic surprise birthday party. And my mom and I spared no expense. We did a lot of really hard work trying to figure all of this out and keep it as a surprise. And my brother hated it. He was so angry, so pissed off at me because we did this. And I'm angry and pissed off, feeling like the victim, like I did something really good for you here. And he comes back and he tells me that, you know what, you did this for you. And you thought you were doing a great job because you did it for your benefit. You felt good about it. You didn't at all consider whether I would benefit or I would like it. And it took, I'll say, a few years for it to really sink in. But it was true. I mean, sure, I did it. I really did it out of a sense of altruism. But if it was truly about him, I would have picked a different way to celebrate it in a way that he would have been happy with, right? And so we come in with these agendas, and part of this martyrdom type of personality that people may have is that they want, whether they realize it or not, they want and or crave the response back, but it's really their own agenda. Mm-hmm. It's really them wanting to do it because they think they're going to get a particular response. And then guess what? They don't always get that response because it's not about the other person at this point. It's become about you. So I have to keep reminding myself, if I'm going to do something, I do it for me, irrespective of what the person's response is going to be at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, and that's a powerful realization, honestly. I mean, it reminds me of a story back when I was in college. A really good friend of mine, she bought me She said she got it for my birthday, but she got these tickets to go watch Usher at an Usher concert. I was not an Usher fan. I didn't give a shit. I still don't give two shits about Usher, honestly. Um, but I had no desire. I'm like, okay, thanks. Like I don't listen to his music, so I'm like, okay, thanks. And she was a huge Usher fan, and I'm like, okay, through her lens, this is an amazing gift because she loves Usher, and then she can't imagine a world where someone doesn't love Usher as much as she does. And at the time, I was like, this is a shitty freaking gift. Like, what the hell? Like, I have to go. First of all, we have to drive to Baltimore, which is at that time it was a lot worse than it is now. There wasn't like Fells Point wasn't nice. It wasn't any of that kind of stuff. It was like you had like one block that was really nice, and that's about it. Everything else sucked. And you have to drive there, find parking, go to this concert that I'm not going to enjoy, and then be like, okay, cool, I had a great time. I have to pretend to have a good time because it's like I don't want her to feel bad. She spent a crap ton of money on these tickets, and we're in college, so we don't make a lot of money, right? So I appreciated it, but I'm like, oh, Jesus, this is ridiculous. And so we went, and I had an okay time overall. We talked about it later, and I told her I was like, hey, I'm not a really Usher fan, you know that, right? Like she's like, oh, whatever. And it's like, okay, whatever. But through her lens, though, this is a great gift, and I think that's where people don't realize that they operate out. Everyone does. Everyone operates out of our own lens, right? We operate out of a lens of this is what I like, so I can't imagine someone else wouldn't like this as well, or this is how I am, so this is how I operate. So this is how everyone else operates too. They must operate this way because that's just the right way. My way of operating is the right way. But the part that they don't finish the sentence is this is the right way to operate for me right now, right? Mm-hmm. This is the right way for me to operate in a way that serves me, at least the way that I think is serving me right now, and it's the best way I can see to operate in this moment. And people don't tend to limit themselves or limit their view to that moment to themselves, as opposed to saying like this is how the world should operate. Everyone, should operate this way. And we see it nowadays all the time in these political conversations, right? Like, you got the people on the left, the people on the right, and people in the middle, and there's a few of them that still exist in the middle, but everyone's judging everybody else based on their own barometer, how they want to operate. And they fail to realize that there are objective standards of just science, which is not really taking sides of things. But on top of that, that aside, they just take their own values and impose them on everybody else.
Yes. And that's really important to understand. And regardless of what it is, if we kind of bring it back to where there's a part in our lives that we're putting something or someone else first, it's because there's a belief that serves us, a belief that makes us feel like this is somehow or the other right, appropriate, it will benefit me, whatever it happens to be. Even if we say that it's temporary, it rarely is temporary.
Right.
I mean, and that's one thing about kids. Eventually they grow up. That doesn't happen with dogs. I should have realized that before I decided to get mine.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with dogs again. Like, yeah, they don't grow up. They don't change. They don't get to the point where they can care for themselves or talk for themselves. Right? Kids do, ideally, ideal world. Some of them don't, but but to that point though, all of that is all mindset, right? It's all stuff where it's like your frame matters. How you frame things to yourself matters as much as how you frame things to everybody else. And we try really hard to be persuasive and frame things properly to everybody else outside the world, outside of our own little world. We don't do that to ourselves. We don't frame things in such a way that like, how do I tell myself this in such a way that I understand this is not productive for me? Like I have to do more for myself. I have to indulge in self-care. And I say indulge intentionally because it is an indulgence sometimes. It feels like it, especially when you're used to serving everybody else. You take 5 minutes for yourself, suddenly you feel like, oh my God, I feel guilty. Like how dare I take this time for myself when they're starving children in Africa? Are you actually serving those kids in Africa right now? No, you're not. So stop feeling guilty. You can do nothing right now from where you are with those kids in Africa. If you want to, go over there. But don't ever use them as an excuse for why you shouldn't be.
Have you heard that as an excuse?
I have, believe it or not. People are like, well, how can I possibly complain about my life when there are people starving in Africa and there's so much hate in the world and there's so much. Okay, well, do something about it. Don't just talk about it, right? You can sit there and observe and complain about it and like put your own mental state into the world of like I ain't got to worry about everything else in the world, or you can do something about it.
So one of the people that I follow, Abraham Hicks, they have this really neat saying which says something like, you cannot be sick enough to help sick people. You cannot be poor enough to be able to help poor people. You cannot diminish yourself enough in any capacity in a way that's actually going to help somebody else. You're just going to be sick, you're going to be poor, you're going to be miserable. You're just adding to that energy of lack and not enoughness. On the other hand, if you decide to go for something that you truly believe in for yourself and you feel worthy about it, you're adding to the energy of like, look, if that person can do it, so can I. And so
Right.
really, you want to be very mindful of where you're putting your energy, whether you're doing it in a solution based process or with the status quo. And anytime we take on somebody else's responsibility, and we're not fully taking on the responsibility because we can do it. I mean, at the end of the day, the responsibility can only lie in one person's hand. But if we try to take that responsibility on, we're actually putting our energy in the status quo, because you're going to feel angry and resentful, and that person is going to take that much longer to learn whatever lessons he or she has to do, because you're taking away whatever it is that's theirs, and theirs only to be able to perform or do.
Yeah. And on top of that too, you're not helping them to interact with anybody else in the future, right? Like they're
Yeah.
not. If to take the kids example, if you spend your whole kid's childhood all the way through 18, right, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
age you think is appropriate, serving them and like never letting them do anything for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
when they go out into the real world or deal with real people,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be spoiled brats, and they're not going to know how to deal with real people or real problems or real
Or
anything,
scared.
or
They
scared, right? Or they'll be terrified, right? And they'll just like won't be able to get out, leave their rooms, and they
that
won't interact
happened
with the
with
world.
me. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue. What was it? That happened with a classmate of mine, a roommate of mine, actually, when I was in college. Her parents used to come with food. They would do her laundry. I mean, every week they would come over and basically take care of her. And I was like, oh, this is so great. I wish my parents would do that. And she's like, no, it's not. They won't allow me to work. They won't allow me to have a bank account. They won't allow me to do anything that we would think would be able to get those baby steps, those interim steps into adulthood, so that when you are finally out of college and into the real world, everything doesn't feel so scary. You
Yeah.
need to have those interim steps and to fail in small ways, so that you know as you go forward what the ramifications are going to be in bigger terms.
I think that's important what you mentioned there, the baby steps, right? And that's also important just even as you like let's say you fast forward to the point where you get self-awareness and you know, okay, hey, I need to change something about my life, right? And you want to change something. Baby steps. Don't go drastic and it's like, oh, I have to quit smoking tomorrow or today and like do a cold turkey. Everything has to change my entire life right away. Those massive changes, some people can do it. Sure, it happens once in a while, but those massive changes long term do not stick. That's why New Year's resolutions are crap, right? Because you're making this massive change and it's not going to stick. You start with small behavioral changes, right? Start small and then build up to that. You got to build a muscle. If you never use that muscle, our behavior is a muscle, right? Every little behavior you use is like a muscle you're building. And if you've never lifted a weight in your life, trying to do a 100-pound bicep curl, you're not going to be able to do it. What do? You start with 5 pounds, then you go up to 10, then 15, then 20, and then 25, and slowly build up to the point where you get to that 100 pounds. You'll get there eventually. It might take a lot longer because you're going to a massive weight like that, but you will get there. But you got to start small. The same thing is true with behavioral change. You got to give yourself those small behaviors, small chances to actually make that difference, and then build up to it. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable.
Right. You need those small successes to build your confidence that yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Right.
So, as we're coming up to the 30-minute mark, what do you have any sort of solutions or advice that you can give to somebody when they are noticing that life's not going as well as they would like it to, because they feel like they're giving up too much of their own energy?
Yeah, I think first of all, that realization alone, like that
Mm-hmm.
they're giving up a lot of their energy, is a huge one to have. I mean, taking that step to actually realize that, so that's worth applauding to start with. But the other thing I would say is just take a look at your responsibilities, what you're able to do, what are you actually able to let go of, right? Start with what you're able to let go of versus what you want to grab onto, because the more you feel obligated to keep helping people and keep going and taking on more responsibilities, in reality, you got to be able to take care of your own self, right? So find opportunities to let go of stuff and make space in your schedule, make space in your life for yourself. And then identify those activities you want to be able to do. Whether some people prefer sleeping, some people want to actually go get a massage or go get a facial, or go play sports, or spend time with their dog. That could be a great way that they can get energy back. But find what energizes you, and then make space for that thing. Figure out how much time you need, and then start making space for that. But you got to let go of other things in order to do that. And those are hard. Those can be hard conversations to have. It can be hard to feel like you're disappointing someone. But in reality, if the shoe was on the other foot, they have to take care of themselves, and they probably would.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's really good. I'll have this conversation with a trusted friend, partner, parent, sibling. It doesn't matter, because chances are they can see it a lot better in your life than you're able to see it in your own life, I should say. I really want to not adopt, but to be a foster for another dog. And everybody's like, nope, you still have to get Lucy in a place where she's easy to walk, easy to handle before I can take on another foster, especially if they're not easy on the leash, right? To walk with on the leash. So having somebody else as a sounding board to say, hey, look, I've been noticing you're spending a lot of time on this. Have you considered the impact of it on your mental well-being?
Yeah, I think that's great. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, tell us in your life, what are some things that you want to let go of, or the things that you want to be able to do to get space in your time to do? Who out there is feeling like they have less and less energy these days? Their schedules are being taken up by things that either they have no control over, or that they're not really that invested in, that they're doing out of obligation, right? Those are the things you want to let go of first. Things that take away your energy, things that sap your energy, where you're like, oh, why did I agree to this? Those are the ones you want to get rid of first. So let us know in the comments below. What are your thoughts? Does this resonate with you? Do you have friends like this who resonate, who may need to watch this video? Share it with them. Hit the like button if you like this video. Please do subscribe, and let us know what you want to see in the future. And Naheed, thanks again for coming on the show as always, and for being my partner in this cool show. I think I enjoy it personally. I know you enjoy it as well. Hopefully our viewers enjoy it. But yeah, thanks again, and thanks to Justice Behind the Scenes. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Yeah, have a good time and drop the energy that doesn't serve you anymore.
100%. Take care.